You ever stop and really think about a word? One you use maybe here all the time? Like travesty. It pops up everywhere, right? News headlines, maybe someone talking about a football game, debates.
Yeah, that's real.
But when you actually dig into what it really means and where it comes from, it's kind of surprising, like a whole hidden story there.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we love doing here on the Deep Dive, isn't it?
Right.
We grab a whole stack of sources, articles, research, our notes, and we try to pull out the most interesting bits, the important stuff.
And today, that stuff is all about this one surprisingly complex word, travesty.
Exactly.
Because you, our listener, the learner, you're probably running into this word in all sorts of places. Reading something, catching the news, maybe even in a book. And you might think, okay, what exactly does that mean here? Am I using it right?
Well, think of this as your quick guide to really getting it. We've waded through a bunch of material. Dictionary definitions from Merriam-Webster, of course.
Yeah.
How it's used in different publications. We looked into its origins.
The etymology.
Yeah, the etymology breakdown from Merriam-Webster. There's also this really helpful blog post comparing it to tragedy because people mix those up all the time.
Oh, definitely.
And we even look at travesty as like a specific type of parody.
Right, from a media blogger.
Yeah. And then for something completely different, there's this academic paper about how the word is used in a specific cultural performance over in Indonesia.
Oh, okay. Quite the range. So let's dive in. The basics. What does travesty actually mean, according to the dictionary, folks?
Okay, so Merriam-Webster gives us two main definitions, really. First, a debased, distorted, or grossly inferior imitation. So picture something that's supposed to have one thing, but it's just a really bad, almost corrupted version of it.
A poor copy.
Or a really poor copy, yeah. Then the second definition leans more towards its performance roots. A burlesque translation or literary or artistic imitation, usually grotesquely incongruous in style, treatment, or subject matter.
Okay, so that sounds more like intentional comedy, almost.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just bad, it's absurdly wrong. Often with this mocking quality aimed at whatever it's imitating. What's interesting is how both definitions, though they seem a bit different, point to this idea of falling really short, like a serious misrepresentation.
Right. And what about that phrase we hear constantly, a travesty of justice? How does that fit?
Well, that's a perfect example of that first definition in action.
Okay.
A travesty of justice isn't just, a bad verdict or an outcome we don't like. It's an act by the legal system that so fundamentally fails to be just. That it actually makes a mockery of the whole idea of justice.
So it insults the system itself.
Exactly. That phrase has become almost like a benchmark for how people feel about the fairness of legal proceedings. It signals something is deeply broken.
So it's less about the result being bad and more about the process itself being, well, ridiculous, flawed to the point of absurdity.
Precisely. And travesty can also be a verb, right?
Oh, yeah, the verb form.
Right. So to travesty, something just means to make a travesty of it, or simply to parody it. But in that very specific, exaggerated, mocking kind of way we were just talking about.
Okay. Now, here's something I know I've probably gotten wrong before, and I bet lots of people do. Confusing travesty with tragedy. I saw the Write at Home blog tackled this directly.
Yes, and it's a really common confusion. What's interesting is they both obviously have negative feelings attached.
Right. They're both bad things.
They're both bad. But the kind of bad is different, and their origins explain why. The blog points out, tragedy originally meant a play with a sad ending.
Like Shakespeare.
Exactly. Now, we use it much more broadly for any really awful, disastrous event, a terrible accident, a natural disaster. It's tragic. Travesty, though, started out as that deliberate, over-the-top, almost grotesque parody, like a funny play making something serious look ridiculous.
So designed to mock.
Right. And over time, its meaning broadened to include any kind of absurd misrepresentation or mockery. So the key difference isn't just bad outcome, it's that element of distortion, imitation gone wrong, often with that mocking undertone.
Okay, so the distinction is whether something is just plain awful or if it's an awful imitation or mockery of something it's supposed to be.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. The blog uses the travesty of justice example. Again, it's not just a sad result in court. It's when the trial itself becomes a farce.
Like a joke version of justice.
Exactly. A distorted shadow of what justice should look like. It's about the integrity of the thing being mocked.
That really clarifies it. The blog had some good examples, right? Like the Super Bowl one.
Yeah, that was helpful. Losing a fairly played Super Bowl, that's a tragedy for the losing team's fans, right? Very upsetting. But a travesty in that context would be something like, I don't know, the referees making completely outrageous, biased calls that clearly decide the game. Then the loss isn't just disappointing, it feels fundamentally unfair, like a mockery of the sport.
Okay, I see.
Or another example,
Yeah.
a hurricane is a tragedy, devastating, terrible loss.
Right.
But maybe an SNL sketch that wildly exaggerates how a politician responded, making them look utterly clueless and ridiculous, that sketch could be called a travesty of their response. It's mocking through distortion.
Got it. Okay, so we're getting a much clearer picture of what travesty means now. But let's go back a bit. Where did this word actually come from? What's the history?
Well, looking at how words evolve is always fascinating, and travesty has quite a journey. Merriam-Webster traces it back to the mid-17th century in English.
Okay.
It came over from the French word travestir and the Italian travestir, and both of those basically meant to disguise.
To disguise, like costumes.
Yeah, and if you go even further back, the root is Latin, vestir, which simply means to dress.
To dress. That's unexpected. How did dressing up connect to the early meanings?
Well, interestingly, when travesty first showed up in English, it was used in a few ways almost at the same time. As an adjective, meaning something like made ridiculous or burlesque, describing things intentionally exaggerated for laughs. As a noun, meaning that burlesque imitation we talked about, and also as a verb, meaning to dress in disguise. And sometimes it specifically meant cross-dressing.
So multiple related meanings right from the start.
Oh, yes. Although that adjective form, it mostly died out after the 18th century.
But the noun stuck around, keeping that idea of funny, mocking imitation.
Exactly. The early noun uses were very much tied to literature and art, those over-the-top imitations designed to be absurd and humorous. That second dictionary definition.
Right. And when did it shift towards the more serious meaning we often use today, like with justice?
Okay, here's the key shift. Merriam-Webster points out that people started pairing travesty with justice around 1850.
Okay. Mid-19th century.
Yeah, and that's really significant. It shows the word moving beyond just comedy or literature to describe something seriously wrong in a fundamental system. And obviously that pairing travesty of justice really caught on and is a huge part of how we understand the word now.